Well, the flood front that's now hitting Brisbane has already swamped Ipswich, a third of the city going under. Lizzie Pearl is there. Lizzie, can you bring us up to date?
Yeah, hi Pete. Well, the water behind me here is the Bremer River, and it's expected to peak roughly in the next half hour. Now, there's a small shelter over there which on the side of it actually shows a marker of where the water got to in 1974. You won't be able to see the exact mark, but I can tell you it's roughly another metre and a half before it reached the peak that it got to back in 74. On the other side, you can see this white building here is actually the Coles supermarket, which is completely swamped. It's completely gone under. So this river here is almost reached as high as it's going to go. And look, as if the people of Ipswich haven't suffered enough, we've been hearing reports today of looting going on in a town called Goodna, which isn't far from here. So not good news. But all this water that you can see behind me now, well, it's on its way to Brisbane. Ipswich is a city divided. The rising river neared its peak, splitting the town's north and south.
I understand we now have many parts of Ipswich completely inundated. The suburbs of Gales and Goodna appear to be particularly hard hit. Crews flying over the area report that all that can be seen of this area is the pedestrian footbridge.
The streets of this riverside suburb became floodways overnight.
Brings a tear to the eye. Brings a tear to the eye.
You've lived here 35 years. This is your home, your community.
Yep. And basically it's underwater. It's gone.
Houses were almost completely submerged, precious belongings now rubbish and floating debris. Nearly 4,000 homes across the city are underwater, the community banding together to help neighbours caught unprepared, desperately trying to save what's left.
No one come and told me to get out last night, but I didn't think it came up very slow early because I was looking every hour. It was only going up this much. It was only about 4 o'clock when I come in the door, so I thought I'd better get out.
Others weren't that lucky.
I've only got me work boots to wear, so it's cool. Well, it's not cool, it just could be worse.
Last night, the evacuations began. So many families headed to the showgrounds, they had to be moved to other centres.
Yeah, it's getting a little bit full.
Inside, all people could do is try to make themselves comfortable in the limited space. This afternoon, some residents chose to stay behind and they face an agonising wait as the brown tide slowly creeps towards their homes. This city's lost a lot. What's it like watching that happen?
Devastating. It really is devastating. There's so many lives lost and families homeless, and it's just a cruel thing to watch, actually.
In Ipswich, Lizzie Pearl, 9 News.
As the waters begin to subside in Toowoomba, Grantham and surrounding areas, rescuers have been able to get in to search for the missing. We were warned the death toll would rise, and today it rose to 12. And we've also learnt more about some of the tragic stories to come out of these floods.
Donna Rice and her 2 sons, Jordan and Blake, were among many drivers left stranded, fighting for survival when the fierce floodwaters swept through Toowoomba on Monday. The family's only hope, the rooftop of their car.
I sort of called out for some ropes, and a guy gave me some ropes, and I tied them together and just headed out towards this car. But the water just kept coming up, and by the time I got near the car, it just swept me off my feet.
Another stranger joined in the rescue. Jordan, who couldn't swim, wanted them to save his younger brother first.
The mum put the boy on his back, and he brought him across the rope to me, and by that time I grabbed the boy, and the water just kept coming up.
Blake survived, but it was too late to save his mum and brother.
The tour guide made it back to the car, and he looked at me and just shook his head because we just knew there was just too much water, and there was just no time. It sort of, the tension took up on the rope and I had to let it go. Well, he was just pleading with me, just please save my mum, just please save my mum. He just was screaming to save his mum.
The car hit a culvert and flipped.
I just kept telling the boy it was going to be all right, and it just wasn't. But I'm just very sorry for himself and his family, and that we couldn't do some more, and that get about. So.
Often the stories of bravery are tinged with heartbreak, as in the case of Murphy's Creek couple Sandra and Steve Matthews. With seconds to spare, they hoisted their 2 children through the ceiling of their home, which was filling rapidly with gushing water. But Stephen and Sandra never made it out. Their bodies were found several kilometres away along the creek. This picture of a family desperate to escape their sinking four-wheel drive led to an influx of calls from the public asking about their welfare. Today, the Premier delivered the news.
The mother and child have been located and are safe. The father is unfortunately one of those on the missing person list.
This couple were on the missing list for 3 days.
It's a miracle we're here, you know, I mean, absolute miracle.
They were feared dead after the wall of water hit Grantham, hit their ute as they fled their home.
So I had a bit of sense of electric windows on it, and we pressed both buttons either side, and lucky the windows wound down. And by that time we was up to here in water.
Somehow they got out of their vehicle and clung to a tree for 3 hours. A helicopter found the elderly couple and winched them to safety.
There were spiders crawling up and I was brushing them off, and our biggest fear was snakes.
Yeah.
Grantham remains closed, a ghost town, no life except for police going from home to home finding bodies. Ken wasn't even sure if his home was still standing, so we took him to the air to find out.
It's still there, it's still there.
Relief yet anguish for the town and the people that he's called home for 20 years.
Oh, that's unbelievable.
It could take several days to find those missing, and the coroner has moved into the Lockyer Valley along with counselling teams.
We still have a number of families who don't know where their children are, who don't know where their loved ones are.
And Davina is live for us tonight at Grantham. Davina, they really are harrowing stories, and I guess there are many more to come.
Yeah, Pete, so many people have said it, but we really do fear the news that we're going to be bringing to you into the next couple of days, because there are so many towns in this area where if the roads aren't cut, they've been completely washed away. The only way in is via air, and today emergency services could finally get a chance to fly in. Towns like Grantham, though, are crime scenes. We're not allowed in. The only way we can show you what's going on is via the air, and they are truly heartbreaking scenes. When we flew over Grantham, every second home had been destroyed. There was no movement, no life, except for police going from door to door, checking to see if anyone was alive. There were a lot of ribbons being tied on fences, Pete. That indicates that they have found bodies inside. We know that this death toll is going to rise.
OK, Davina, thank you. Well, we're broadcasting tonight from the Queensland capital, Brisbane, and the Brisbane River is the focus. We're looking at the river peaking at 5.5 metres sometime around 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. 9 News called on a digital imagery team to draw up a 3D map of how this might look. And here's what we've found. Now remember, this is just a projection. The centre of Brisbane, water levels edging further and further into the CBD. You can see there the botanical gardens underwater according to this projection. The eastern side of Kangaroo Point, near where I'm standing now, swathed. Then east of the Bradfield Highway, New Farm, a big residential area, also expected to be hit hard. Meandering around the suburb of Albion, troubled by rising water levels. On the other side of the river, Bulimba, also in danger. In the distance, East Brisbane. This, of course, only a projection, but if the computer calculations are right, it's what Brisbane can expect by tomorrow morning.